At this point, I'd like to direct your attention to the investor presentation, which I'm currently sharing on my screen. You can also find a copy of this presentation on our website at novoresources.com. And at this time, I would ask everyone, as per usual, just to familiarize yourselves with the cautionary statement language. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to Miss Amy Jo Stefanik, whom you should see now on your screen there from Denver, Colorado, who's joining us today after being elected to Novo's board of directors at our recently completed AGM. So welcome, Amy, from the team. I'd also like to thank Ms. Akiko Levinson and Mr. Yoshikazu Shikawa, or Cash as we know him, who are both on this call for their years of dedicated service. Both Cash and Akiko have not stood for re-election at this year's AGM and have just as of 10-15 minutes ago completed their tenure as directors of Novo. So again, thank you very much on behalf of the entire Novo team and the shareholders for your years of dedicated service. In addition to Amy, Cash, and Akiko, in attendance today are the following Novo personnel. With me in Perth, Western Australia here, I have Rob Humphreys, CEO and Director, along with independent directors Michael Barrett, Michael Spreadborough, and Ross Hamilton here in the Perth boardroom. And it is nice to have people in a boardroom. It's certainly been nice to be able to do it on this side of the world for the last couple months, if not longer. In Denver, Colorado, I have Quinton Hemi, whom you can see on your screen, Chairman, President, and a Director, along with Amy Jo Stefanik, whom I just introduced as our newest independent director. In Toronto, Ontario, I have Leo Carabelis. Leo, I believe you're there somewhere, our VP Corporate Communications. And then blinding you on the screen, in Nullagine, Western Australia, we have Chris Martin, our GM Operations, to whom I will now pass the microphone so he can give you all a proper Australian welcome from the Golden Eagle Mill. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Ronan. I guess that's a good day from WA, and specifically the Nullagine Gold Project up in the East Pilbara of Western Australia. Look, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners, past, present, and future of the Namal, Palku peoples, and also the local custodians, the Martu. It is across these groups' country that our East Pilbara operations are located, and without their collaboration, this would just not be possible. So, look, a lot has happened up here in the project since the last AGM. We've expanded the mining operation at Beats Creek and fully refurbished the 4 megawatt Golden Eagle mill you can see behind me. This is currently running at around about 1.8 million tonnes per annum on an annualised basis. And look, the plant's demonstrated capacity to stretch its legs, and it will be targeting 2 million tonnes per annum later in the year. So great to see the performance of this mill. Right, out in front of me there, you can see the crushing circuit. The crushing circuit has been running absolutely brilliantly, capable well in excess of 2 million tonnes per annum, so more than enough to feed the current processing plant. We have the mill in the foreground. Behind that, you can see the gravity circuit. The gravity circuit has been recovering in excess of 60% of the recoverable gold, which is above the expectations of how we thought that would perform. On the back of that, we have the CIL circuit, also performing well, picking up the remainder of the gold, delivering an overall recovery of around about 94% for the project overall. I'm going to head down to the mining operation now, and about 12 kilometres north of there, and I'll get back to you with an update from there a bit later on in the presentation. Over to you, thanks, Rob.
All right, thank you. Just to give people, before we get into the presentation properly, just to give people a bit of a flavour for how Novo operates. I guess since we pegged a lot of ground out near Karatha and really expanded our tenure in the Pilbara out to about 14,000 square kilometres, we're aware, we're an exciting new gold district with a completely new style of gold mineralisation. We're very aware of the potential for this to be a multi-generational gold mining district impacting the many community stakeholders across the Pilbara region. Very important to us at Novo, be a good corporate citizen and be trusted by the impacted stakeholders to operate in a safe, respectful and environmentally sensitive manner. This in mind, we've done our best to build solid relationships across the Pilbara and present as a reliable and trustworthy miner. It's also very important that we operate safely. Draw your attention to the second bullet point there, that to date we've recorded no lost time injuries through the complex and challenging task of putting and operation into production. That's testament to the attitude and culture, not only the people we've recently recruited, but also the existing exploration crews that have been helping out a lot with the new people explaining how conglomerate gold works. So great job to everyone there. Further, we also understand the importance, the current and growing importance of ESG principles to our investors. That's in environment, social and governance, to employees, investors and stakeholders alike. With this in mind, we took the proactive step of recruiting Mr. Ross Hamilton as a director late last year. Ross is a globally preeminent ESG practitioner. We look forward to benefiting from his wisdom as we look to publish our inaugural sustainability report in the first half of 2022. I'll let you read through the bullet points in the presentation at your leisure. Those and many more will be covered in the sustainability report next year. Thank you. I'll hand back to Quinton.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm going to start by just giving a little background about the company and really what we're about at this point. Look, Novo is one of the few exploration companies that's made this transformation into a producer. It's not often you see this, but it's really a testament to the strength of our team. We through Rob's help and others, you can see on the screen here, we've been able to build a very strong operating team in Australia. And you can see that our directorship is becoming more and more Australian, also more seasoned around operations. Certainly appreciate all the help that Akiko and Cash have given us over the years. I'm going to be very sad to see both of them go, but I know that I will still remain close with both. We also welcome Amy Jo to our board, and now I'm proud to say that I have at least one director who I can go out and have a beer with. So it's a pleasure to have people on my side of the pond, so to speak, as well as on the Australian side. But we have a very strong team, well-rounded in all departments, and I'm absolutely delighted that Novo has built what it has. You can see we are a Western Australian focused gold producer. Of course, our operation at Beaton's Creek is our foundation for that. But we do have a significant landholding across the Pilbara and other parts of Australia, notably in the Victoria state, which I'll talk about later. But we have about 14,000 square kilometers across the Pilbara. We have extremely good exploration potential across that tenure. And we also have the skills. We've developed in-house the skills to advance what are quite frankly very, very unusual deposits. These are coarse nuggety gold deposits quite often, and we've developed the skills to treat those both in terms of exploration, bulk sampling, things like this, as well now as processing as well. We're looking at things like mechanical sorting. Rob will talk at length about that here in a bit. Experienced board, I just told you who we have on our team, and I think that this really sets us in a good place for a good foundation. Importantly, we are now well funded. We have a great balance sheet. We are unhedged, and we have a number of strategic investments. I think Ronan will touch on those late in the presentation. Really puts us in a good position as a junior miner goes. We have great strategic shareholders. That would include our most recent one, IMC Holdings, from whom we purchased the Millennium assets here recently. Anyway, you can see where we're positioned here in Australia, Pilbara up in the northwest corner, as well as Victoria in the southeast. Go to the next slide, please, Ronan. All right, this gives you a little bit more granularity on our land holdings across the Pilbara region. So this is a zoomed in map showing our tenure in shaded with a green outline. You can see we have our Golden Eagle Mill and Beaton's Creek in the far east, so on the right-hand side of this slide, near the town of Nullagine. And that's the foundation again. That's where we're in production, and we will see that cash flow that allows us to unlock the rest of this. But we have a lot of projects. You can see in red the labels for our projects. We have projects expanding nearly 400 kilometers from east to west across the Pilbara. We also have some newer projects in the south too, where the same rocks that we're looking at, these conglomerates that are layered, They come up on the south side of the Hammersley Basin. These other little flags that you see are competing companies. These are other companies that are operating in the Pilbara region. Now, what I want to emphasize here is that back when I first came to the Pilbara, none of these names, none of them were operating here. Okay, this was basically a blank slate. Now, Millennium was looking at developing, I think they were called Wedgetail at the time, but they were looking at developing a mine in the Nullagine area. That came to be several years later. I take quite a bit of pride in what you see here because I think the activity that Novo has undertaken in the Pilbara has helped to catalyze a lot of what you see. Okay, companies like De Grey, quite frankly, they were able to leverage raising money and so forth on the back of the work that we were doing in the Pilbara. Same goes for Artemis, same goes for Karatha, same goes for Kairos. Millennium, who operated here as a mining company for several years, they were successful for a period, about 6 or 7 years. We were very fortunate to be able to acquire their assets late last year, which allows us to get into production quite quickly now. But this is an up and coming gold field. The Pilbara is now seeing a lot of attention that it really never saw before in Australia gold mining history. So it's a delight to see this growth, this attention given to a region that has a huge amount of prospectivity. Go to the next slide, Ronan. Okay, here you can see in the map on the right-hand side, land holdings. Okay, in blue, we have Novo, and we have tenure, I kid you not, comparable to the major iron ore companies in this region. Rio Tinto being one, BHP in green, and then FMG in yellow. We are a major, major landholder. Now, you see our tenements are somewhat separate from those because we're in the lower rocks. We're in the rocks, the conglomerates and so forth that are closer to the basement part of the stratigraphy. So we're kind of on the north side of the basin or on the far south side of the basin. But nonetheless, we see the Pilbara as an up-and-coming major gold field in context that it is already a large iron ore producing terrain. It's a huge, in fact, it's the world's largest. Okay, now, Novo was incorporated in 2009. So it's really about 12 years old. Again, for the company to make this leap from exploration into production, it's a very rare phenomenon, but it requires a lot of hard work. And again, it's all the responsibility of our team, and they deserve full credit. We had our first gold pour in February. That was after our last AGM. And, if people wonder why we have an AGM in June now, it's because we did transition to the TSX. We had our last AGM while we were in the TSXV, and that was in December. So from henceforth, we'll be having our AGMs in June. There will be a bit of an update here by Wall a little bit later from the mine site. You can see for yourself the mining activity at Beaton's Creek. It's absolutely delightful to see. Even if you're sitting 12,000 miles away like myself. But we do have the intent in the bottom bullet there of growing this company based on the tenure, the 14,000 square kilometers of tenure that we have across the Pilbara. And we have allocated a significant exploration budget, about $12 million Australian for 2021. All right, the bottom, you can see that we have high quality gold mineralization. Our assets, our gold deposit style is very high quality. It's nuggety, it's unique, but we have, again, have the IP to handle that style of mineralization. We have significant upside. The deposits lend themselves to being very continuous over large areas. So we know that we have good upside in a number of projects we'll talk about shortly. That IP is absolutely critical. Mechanical sorting is going to be part of the future of this company. But we also have a very good innovative exploration team who know how to handle things like bulk sampling and assessing grades of these unique deposits. And that is what gives us an advantage. In fact, we're using that advantage for strategic investments as well. All right, let's go to the next slide.
So we'll just take you through the Beaton's Creek project as it stands. We have a conglomerate gold resource of around 900,000 ounces indicated and inferred. You can break that up into roughly 750,000 ounces in the surface resource and around 150,000 ounces in the underground portion. This is going to underpin a 6-year mine life on current projections. Quinton will talk a little bit later about the significant growth potential that exists immediately adjacent to our operations and indeed in the East Pilbara. We run a conventional open pit mining operation. We've got Iron Mine Contracting doing a terrific job on site. We've got 3 mining fleets at the moment, a 125-ton digger class fleet and 2 85-ton digger class fleets. And Chris Marden on site will pan around and show you some of that later on. We've also got conventional processing infrastructure. It's fantastic. This plant is eminently suitable to processing Beaton's Creek, and we made some modifications, as we've made people aware of through news releases, to increase the gravity circuit, because the amount of gold that we get through the gravity circuit with our nuggety gold deposits is significantly higher than what Millennium got from their deposits in the past. So that's running really, really well. As Chris said, we're running it currently at 1.8 million tonnes per annum. And we've got capacity to further increase that should we need to as well. Novo's always had to leverage innovation across everything we do, because no one's explored for or mined these conglomerate gold deposits previously. One of the key areas of technology that we use is the Chrysos photon assay technology. Now we rely on that technology for grade control assays. Because the deposit's so nuggety, this technology allows us to assay far larger quantities of material than was possible in conventional assay labs in the past. So that's really coming into its own to help us as we move forward. We now have almost exclusive access to 2 of the 5 machines in Australia, which will greatly speed up the turnaround time on those assays. Great. You'll see down below the bottom of this slide the graphs that we put in the recent news release. I guess the key message from here is the trend is your friend. As we've ramped up the operation, we've seen a steady increase towards our targeted processing rates, and ditto for gold production year to date. May was our highest with just over 5,000 ounces, and we intend to keep improving on that month after month until we get to our targeted rates. Next slide, Ron. So just running through the infrastructure that we've acquired from Millennium. So 1.5 million tonne nameplate capacity conventional gold gravity CIL processing plant. As I've said, we're running that above nameplate at the moment, and we can go higher than that. Again, it's 4 megawatt SAG mill. We've got a 10 megawatt power station, fully permitted tailing storage facility. And we're about to have some modifications underway so that we can actually process mechanical sorter products from other sites. This is important to recognise that when we bought the processing facility, it's not just to process Beaton's Creek. When we bring rock samples in from around the Pilbara to put through our mechanical sorter, they'll be split into concentrate and reject streams. Now we need to determine how much gold is in each of those streams to determine how effective the sorter is at sorting out the gold from the waste rock. With this plant, we're going to modify it so that we can put all of the concentrate and representative samples from the reject. We're going to crush it down and put it into the Acacia reactor. For those that have paid attention through all our news releases, we upgraded the gravity circuit. We've now got a redundant Acacia reactor and Nelson concentrator. We're going to use that equipment to process mechanical sorter concentrates to develop that process across the Pilbara. Importantly, we've added to the 291 square kilometres of highly prospective tenure that we acquired from Millennium. Novo already had a large land position and in the area, and immediately prior to acquiring Millennium, Novo also did a deal with famous Western Australian prospector Mark Creasy. We acquired a lot more land around that area. So with the original Novo ground, the Creasy tenure, and the ground we picked up from Millennium, we've now got a commanding position right across the Nullagine gold belt. So just turning to mechanical sorting, we've spoken a lot about this over recent years, and we've done a lot of testing across Australia and in Germany at a lot of our prospects. I guess the benefit, nuggety gold is difficult from an exploration point of view. You need to take bulk samples. It's very unconventional. What's difficult in exploration may become our best friend in production. We're intending on conducting phase 2 trials this season. The sorter, there's a pictorial of it down on the right. That machine is sitting in Perth at the moment in a sea container under wraps, being prepared to send up to the Pilbara very soon. We're going to take it to the Nullagine Gold Project this season. We'll extract samples from places such as Talga, Virgin Creek, Contact Creek, Egina, Beaton's Creek, Comet Well, Purdy's, and bring that material back to Nullagine, crush it, screen it, sort it, and perfect the technique of working out the gold content through the Acacia reactor and into the gold room, into the electrowinning circuit, and pour gold bars from that concentrate. That's a pretty exciting project that we're embarking on this year. Next year, we anticipate that sorter will be redeployed across to Comet Well, Purdy's to conduct around a 20,000 tonne trial of material from that area. So the production concept is to generate low tonnage, high grade concentrate from nuggety gold mineralisation for transport to the existing Golden Eagle mill. Now, what that means, I spoke about ESG principles in the past. This really hones in on that idea of producing green gold. If we can make this work, it means that we don't need any more major capital. We don't need to build a processing facility. We don't need tailings dams. It's a dry process and chemical free as well. So fantastic environmentally. It also maximises the use of existing capital, personnel and approvals that we've already got at the Nullagine Gold Project. It's a simple operation, just conventional mining, crush, screen and sort, and truck the concentrate across to Nullagine. We also anticipate that this sorting machine will also help us in grade control at the mining operation as the machine sees the amount of pixels of gold that go past the screen, and we can also measure the weight of the concentrate into the accepts bin, and we can get a proxy for grade control about exactly how much gold has come from each area and use that and to make it start to become a predictive tool about where the gold's going. So exciting project. You'll hear a lot more about this going forward. Just to repeat, it's heading up to Nullagine very shortly to integrate with the Nullagine Gold Project. And next season, we're intending on relocating the sorter and associated infrastructure across to Comet Well. Back to you, Quentin.
All righty, thank you. All right, you can see our tenure a little bit clearer here without so many labels. We've got really 3 areas up in the north that we focus on or treat as discrete project areas. Obviously, the East Pilbara, which is now the hub being the Golden Eagle Mill, is definitely a main point of focus for us in terms of exploration going forward. We want to find lots of rock to keep that mill full. But we do see opportunity, as Rob said, to treat things like Purdy's Reward and Comet Well through unconventional means, producing a concentrate through mechanical sorting. And how we treat that would be to then take the concentrate and ship it over to Nullagine. We have our own mill. Okay, this is wonderful outcome. So Purdy's Reward and Comet Well is going to be a focus for us on development and seeing if we can bolt on that part of the story onto our current production schedule. Egina, which is in the north central part of the Pilbara, bit different deposits there. We're talking about a derivative for the most part in the gravels. Okay, so the conglomerates have eroded away and left a residua of gravels across the vast terrace there, erosional terrace, and we see that as becoming a potential mining center on its own right. Now, the other thing we've realized here recently, and I'll talk briefly about this in a couple of slides, is there is basement potential at Egina, and it's very exciting. So I'll touch on that briefly here in a minute. Now, down in the south there, we do see that collection of tenements becoming in its own right an important project for us. These are areas, again, where the same rocks that we have in the north have been uplifted. They've been basically upwarped and brought to surface along the south side of the basin. So the domes down there, Wailu Dome, Rocklia Dome, and the Bellary Dome, we have tenement packages that do cover auriferous horizons, conglomerates, if you will, and also basement rocks in those areas. So that is definitely going to be a focus for our exploration as well. Again, we're spending $12 million this year across these tenement packages. That could be accelerated. Success dependent on what we find in some areas. We might accelerate things. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Ronnie. We're going to dig in and look a little harder at where we're focusing our exploration. Okay, we're going to start in Nullagine. This is a zoom in of our land holdings across the Nullagine goldfield. As Rob said earlier, we have a commanding position now across this goldfield. We basically have control of something like 95% of all the known gold occurrences within easy driving distance of the processing plant. The processing plant, you can see down there, it's kind of in all the yellow dots, it's down towards the bottom. The Golden Eagle pit, of course, which was the main source of ore for Millennium for several years, is immediately adjacent to the processing plant. We do see potential there. Beaton's Creek is due north of the processing plant next to the town of Nullagine. So right now we are mining at Beaton's Creek and trucking ore down to the processing plant. But these other yellow dots that you see are all projects that we see deriving potential from through exploration. Right around Beaton's Creek, for example, we've recognized that there are extensions of the conglomerate horizons over on the west side of the Beaton's Creek area. We call that Beaton's Extended. We have Skyfall to the south, where yet another series of conglomerates has been found up section from Beaton's Creek. These are very interesting, very intriguing prospects for us. Early stage, but we do see, like Beaton's Creek, good potential. Down around the processing plant, we have some low-hanging fruit in terms of the Golden Eagle deposit. We are looking, for example, at oxide remnants and also non-refractory fresh rock that was left behind. There was a great deal of confusion for a period at Millennium once they got down into the fresh rock of what was treatable, what was not. So we're doing some what we call geomet work that's basically going to help differentiate what is potential ore at that location. AU81, we also see some very good potential for expansion. But these deposits that string out clear across the Mosquito Creek Basin, they go clear out to the east there to what we call Parnell. These are all high quality targets in the basement rocks across the Mosquito Creek terrain, and they complement what we have at Beaton's Creek. I expect the lion's share of our exploration to focus in this area, again, to help build a long-term mine life. Go to the next slide, please. Now we're going to step out and look a little bit bigger field here around the East Pilbara. You can see Nullagine, the processing plant in Beaton's Creek, down towards the bottom of this image. But we have other prospects in here, in this region, that could generate and complement the Beaton's Creek operation. For example, up in the northwest there at Contact Creek and Virgin Creek, we have conglomerates that are very similar to those at Beaton's Creek. In fact, those are natural extensions. They're part of the same basin, sedimentary rocks up there near Marble Bar. So those projects we consider relatively advanced. We've done some work, and we do see doing quite a bit more work in this year's exploration program to see if we can establish a picture that's similar to Beaton's Creek. Talga is an orogenic system, but very high grade in places. Because of its access straight down the Marble Bar Highway, we do see opportunity to perhaps take advantage of that. We do see potential for, say, 250,000 ounces in terms of exploration potential at good grades. We think that there's potential for very good grades, say 3 to 5 grams per ton in an open pit that could be developed over the next, say 2 years or so. That could be brought into the picture at Nullagine. That is truckable. Stratton's is a new opportunity that we're exploring right now. Salvation Well and Elsie, a bit further from the mill or from the roads, but very high potential. We bought Mount Elsie project last year, and we've done quite a bit of work there to see multiple targets, each of which we think we can drill out and bring into a production scenario. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now we're going to step over to Egina. This map shows not only our 100% owned tenements, but also our joint venture ground with a couple of parties. So, for example, the Hatchard ground over there on the right-hand side, Sandy Creek area, That's in joint venture with both New Frontier and Essential. And then you have the De Grey option. This is basically ground where we've optioned the surface rights, those gravel rights from De Grey Mining. Now, De Grey has been wildly successful with a discovery up at Hemi. Hemi is shown in the upper right. De Grey has a number of other gold deposits strung along the length of their tenements. But that Hemi discovery, which was made about 2 years ago, is shaping up to be a major basement type discovery. Now, we have been focused almost exclusively on the gravel horizon at surface up to this point. And we do see very good potential there still, but we do recognize that particular type of discovery, that the geology that's found at Hemi actually continues to the southwest, or we'll call it west southwest, from Hemi onto the northern part of our tenement package. There are these intrusives. They're called sanukitoids. It's just the name of the intrusive type. But basically, they're a high magnesium granite. And in this area, they seem very, very closely associated with gold mineralization. And that's the case at Hemi. So this sanukitoid type gold system, potential is on our ground as well. And we will be spending part of our attention and focus on that target. Another item that I'm going to bring up right now is heritage. A lot of the area that you see here is on what's called the Gandiera Reserve. We have been working diligently with both the Carriera people and the Mungarina people to establish a long-term working relation with both parties. We had a break in this negotiations with them over a period when the hot months were around. Look, it's very difficult to negotiate and have discussion with the native title parties during what's traditionally what they call lore season. It's basically a special time of year where they're offline. Winter is back around, and we expect to fully engage and advance those discussions. We recognize how important it is to build those very strong relations with the Aboriginals to move this project forward. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, over here at Comet Well and Purdy's Reward. This is in what we call the Karatha Gold Project. It's immediately south of the city of Karatha. Karatha is a major port for iron ore, and there are a number of highways that go north and south, mainly through this region. One of the highways that comes straight south goes down to, I believe, Paraburdoo and so forth, but it goes right past this area called Comet Well and Purdy's Reward. And this was a subject of a major discovery a few years ago. Gold was discovered in conglomerates here by prospectors at first. We recognized the potential back in early 2017 and quickly built a commanding land position over this area. Today, we have advanced both Comet Well and Purdy's Reward to the point where we know there are large continuous bodies of conglomerate that are potentially extractable here. Okay, so what are we doing? We're mainly focused on looking at mechanical sorting as a means of treating those conglomerates. The gold in those conglomerates tends to be very coarse grained. We've talked about that extensively over the past years. And we have looked specifically at how to recover that type of gold from the conglomerates. We see opportunity to crush, screen, and then mechanically sort a product at Comet Well and Purdy's Reward that would be a very high value, highly upgraded product that could be trucked over to Nullagine. So we will be doing test work on this year, but we also can see doing large scale bulk sampling on an ongoing basis, dependent on the success of that. Now, what we're doing this year is we're testing this by mining this material, taking it over to Nullagine. A lot of people have asked, why are we doing the mechanical sorting at Nullagine? It's quite simple. We have a fully permitted milling operation at Nullagine, which makes it extremely easy for us to establish the sorter over there. Whereas if we had to apply the sorter at different locations around the field, for instance, here and then Egina and other locations, it would have required a lot of complicated permitting processes and so forth that would have taken a fair bit of time. So we saw that as the quickest path to getting some answers this season. All right, go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is down in the south. This is the area that I talked about earlier, where the sedimentary rocks emerge out of the basin and they're actually upfolded along what are called domes. They're basically uplifts in which the layers of rock, in this case, they kind of look like rings of an onion, have been brought close to surface. You have 3 domes here. You got the Wailu, the Bellary, and the Rocklia Dome. We have already found significant gold over near Parabadoo, but we are doing exploration on the remaining tenements around here. There has been talk about gold-bearing conglomerates near the Paulson's mine on the tenure we have over there. So we do know there's a lot of work to do here, and we see this as a further growth for exploration. Go ahead. Okay, the last slide we're going to talk about for exploration takes us over to Victoria State. What we have done in Victoria State is to build a very select, very focused project called the Malmesbury Project. It is near the Castlemaine Goldfield, but it is also due south of Kirkland Lake's Fosterville mine. Now, why did we focus on this area? Look, I did quite a bit of work in this region a few years ago. I was very fortunate to be part of the Newmarket and then Kirkland Lake story at Fosterville. And I got a sense for where there might be very, very high value targets in the state of Victoria. And Malmesbury, head and shoulders above anything I recognize, I saw as being the most Fosterville-like story. Now, the land ownership here was split between GBM Resources, an ASX listed company, as well as Kalamazoo Resources, another ASX listed company. But we struck deals with both parties, and we've managed to bolt together a significant holding in the Malmesbury district. We have a 50% interest in both tenement packages with those respective parties, but we have the right to explore, and then by spending money to increase our ownership to 70% in both cases. So we have good opportunity here to build a very exciting high-grade, we call it traditional Victorian gold story through exploration. And we have been working in the field here recently. We have an exceptionally good exploration team led by Cass DeLuca. She is in the field right now. That's where we want her, or I want her. I want to make sure they're all working out there. And she's built a great team of explorers, including some particular people who are very, very specialized in this type of gold system. So the mapping and so forth that they've done recently, I've been very pleased. And I can already tell you that we're seeing targets emerge from that exercise. So expect good news out of this project later this year. Okay, go forward. All right, I'm going to let Ronan take this slide.
Thanks, Quinton. Just want to draw everybody's attention briefly to our capital structure and financial summary. I think everybody's fairly familiar with our shareholder base. And of course, Quinton alluded already to the fact that our second largest shareholder, IMC Holdings out of Singapore, was the primary person from whom we purchased Millennium back in September of last year. I would like to say thank you very much to all the shareholders. I think it's important to note that we had the largest voting turnout by proxy this year that Novo's ever had at just under 50%. So really do appreciate the support from all the shareholders, and note that all resolutions were passed at the AGM that we recently completed. If I take you through the financial metrics quickly, we're in a very strong cash position. These are all at the end of May. 45 million Canadian cash balance with an additional 15 million in current assets, which includes warehouse consumables and, more importantly, inventory and GIC. We do have marketable securities, our investment portfolio, which is worth, as at the end of May, 200 million Canadian dollars. I'll touch on that in a little more detail momentarily. Our working capital position as at the end of May was 25.8 million. I should note, for those of you who do read our MD&A, or quarterly MD&A, that there are certain exemptions within that figure that our senior secured lender, Sprott Resource Lending, allows. So that is the balance sheet figure, but it's actually a higher figure if you look at how we stack up against our debt covenants. I will confirm now, of course, as we do in all our quarterly reporting, that we are in compliance with all of our debt covenants. And of course, the Sprott debt, which all of you should be aware of, is our US currently drawn down 14 million senior secured facility. Just a quick summary on that. Interest rate is 8% plus the greater of 1% or US 3-month LIBOR. So currently cash rate on a monthly basis, which we pay interest, is 9%. We do have an additional US 10 million, which we can draw by September 30th of this year, subject to Sprott's review of the Beaton's Creek PEA, which is ongoing. That is also at Novo's sole discretion if we want to draw that funding. Of course, I should also note that as our ramp up continues, to which Rob alluded, year-to-date revenue through May 31 was 27 million Canadian dollars, and we're seeing that figure grow every day. And I should point out to everybody that, of course, here in Australia, we are subject to the Aussie gold price, which is currently 23.55. So that is certainly helpful. Chris, I'll jump over to you in a sec. I'm just going to quickly touch on our next slide, which is our strategic investment portfolio. At the end of May, we just breached Canadian $200 million, which is an astounding figure, considering that most of these holdings were acquired either via share swap arrangements, joint ventures, or other property transactions. Of course, most of the balance in the portfolio is dictated by the value of newfound gold. Our cost base for that investment, which is also a share swap arrangement, not a cash transaction, is just over $1 Canadian. Their share price is a bit volatile. I believe they closed at about 11.50 today or last night for us in Perth, but certainly seen some incredible growth from that investment. And look, Novo and the board and management have a long-term strategic view on our investments and work very closely with our investees. If we were to look to liquidate any of our holdings, we would do so responsibly and in conjunction with said partners. At this point in time, we have a long-term strategic view on our investments, and we certainly plan to keep it that way. I'll now pass it back to Chris, or Wal as we call him, whom you can see in yellow. Wal, let me just turn off my screen share here so that we can see you on full screen, and you can give us a bit more info about Beaton's Creek.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks, mate. Yeah, look, I'm now 12 kilometres north of the processing plant. I'm at the Beaton's Creek mining operation, overlooking the Grants Hill Central and the Grants Hill North pit mining areas. In front of me, you can see two excavators busy working on the Grants Hill North area. This month, we've got 3 mining fleets running here at the moment. One of them's over at the Edwards mining area, the other 2 in front of me. The 3 mining fleets will move in the order of about 10 million tonnes of material during June, and about a quarter of that material is going to be mineralised conglomerate ore. The mineralised conglomerate, we will truck that down to the Beaton's Creek Gold Eagle Mill, about 12 kilometres south, and process the bulk of that material during the month. Later in the year, one of the mining fleets is going to head down to a Golden Eagle, and it will undertake a lift on the tailings dam down there, and that will extend the life of that tailings storage facility out about another 2 years. Look, the operation is running really well. We've got produced just over 5,000 ounces of gold last month. As you've seen, the trajectory is all heading in the right direction. We're building month on month our production base. Very happy with the way the operation is running. As we fine tune it, we hope to see improved production moving forward. So thanks for that, and I'll throw it back to you now. Thanks.
Okay, so to recap, look, we are in production, and we have a great foundation upon which to build. We have an exceptional exploration team. What we have built is truly exceptional in the mining community. I would say that the people you're looking at here on our board, as well as the exploration team and mining team in the field, are as good or better than almost all gold miners you'd see across Australia. I mean, it's exceptional that a little company like us has come in and built what we have. But we're very proud of what we've accomplished. We're now eager to explore those 14,000 square kilometers and get out there and really grow Novo from here. We're blessed with a great balance sheet, great strategic investments that are delivering for us. But it's really about creating value for our shareholders. And I think we have the right folks to do that. Go to the next slide. This is one of the most exceptional pictures I've ever seen in my life. And when they sent it to me, I thought, no way on earth is that real. Like somebody's played with this in Photoshop. But that is indeed an unadulterated photograph from Nullagine. You can see it was a wet year last year, so there's standing water here and there in places, and you can see that wonderful winter sunrise. Okay, this is winter down in Australia, and this is just what it's all about. It's a delightful place to be this time of year, or any time of year, but in particular the winter time, and it's just exceptional to see a picture like this. Leo Carabellis, who is on the call, is our point contact for IR. He's noted down there at the bottom his email address as well as telephone number. So I'd encourage you to ask any questions to Leo and myself and others. We'll get back with answers. And with that, I believe we have finished the presentation.
That's correct. Thank you very much, Quentin. We do have a couple of questions that have come through the Q&A function. Thank you very much to our attendees for poking those through. What we'll do is we'll start answering those. There are a couple about ore sorting and our plans, so I think I'll hand it over to Rob to start on that one.
Sure, fine. So we address the question from anonymous attendee, is any sort of starting working yet? The answer to that is yes, very soon. It's important to understand that the work at Nullagine this year, the actual sorting will not take all that long. It's really the planning that goes into getting the sorting and the infrastructure and the materials handling right. There's a lot of work gone in behind the scenes. You need to engineer a structure, make it cyclone proof. We need to make sure it can handle an input rate of 300 tonnes per hour, which has implications for the machinery you need to feed it, etc., etc. But really, it's the planning that goes into the taking of the samples at the various locations that the geologists have spent a lot of time on. So I guess in summary, the sorter is currently sitting in River Lake. Very soon we'll have all the long lead items ordered, all the sea containers, the dome roof, everything. We're going to bolt it together down in Perth prior to dismantling and relocating up to Nullagine. It's not needed on site for a few months. We've got to get out to all these other prospects and take the samples, get it to site, get the crushing and screening plant to Nullagine as well, and then we're in position to start processing samples through the sorter. A couple of questions from.
I'm going to add a little bit to your answer there. I think it's important for investors to see our mechanical sorter, the one that we have in Australia, as a tool by which we can experiment for the short term. Okay, in other words, over the next year or so, we are going to go out and collect bulk samples from a number of our projects and test them in the field, and by trucking that material to this sorter and crushing, screening, sorting it to see what we can produce. This is a really unique effort. There's no other company out there that I know of that's doing something like this, but it's an extraordinary opportunity to really test drive this technique and see if we can use it effectively to add to our production profile. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, you're right, that's good. So to answer a couple of questions from Frank, since the sorter will not be relocated to Purdy's Comet Well until 2022, is it anticipated that a resource for this area will be deferred to 2022 as well? You'd have to assume that, Frank, yes. I would make the point that everything we do with the sorter, we also involve Dr. Simon Dominey out of the UK and Ian Blacken here in Perth. They're our QPs and experts on coarse gold, so they provide advice on the location and the size of the samples to make sure they're representative. So we take advice from those guys so that when we design the sampling programs, it gives us a chance of being able to establish a resource based upon the results that we find. Having said that, for example, at Comet Well, Purdy's, if it's not consistent enough to generate a resource, I guess internally we need to satisfy ourselves that there's a mineralization horizon that we believe we can extract gold from profitably. So a resource is first prize, but it's not, in the absence of resource, it doesn't mean the project is over. Moving on to another question. Are negotiations with native title groups around Egina ongoing to enable the phase 2 sorter trials projected for this year, or are these approvals in place? We have those approvals in place, Frank. it's really the sampling that we'll do will be around the original trenches in the northeast corner of the Egina Fano McMahon mining lease. So we have approval to remove material from there to take across to Nullagine to process through the sorter. Another question, can we sort in Karatha now? If not, how can we bring the concentrate to the mill? The hold up with sorting in Karatha at the moment, we've got the Aboriginal approval to do so, to actually move 80,000 tonnes on exploration licence. It's unprecedented, and it's normally the slowest approval. It was actually the first one we had, which is testament to the relationship we've got with the native title party in the Karatha area. We've got Department of Mines approval. Given it's a crushing and screening operation near sensitive receptors like the town of Karatha Harding Dam, there are a lot of approvals required for crushing and screening from the Department of Water. Right at the moment, the Department of Water are probably the longest lead approvals agency. They're depleted, and there's a lot of work going on around Western Australia. We're in a bit of a boom at the moment across all minerals, and you sort of get a certain amount of attention from each department. So we've got extended mining approvals at Beatons Creek. We've got the tails down lift at Nullagine. So if we pushed for further approvals at Karatha now, that would just delay other critical infrastructure approvals at our operating area. So coupled with wanting to establish the sorter at Nullagine to really nail down the back end Acacia reactor, electrowinning cells and pouring gold bars, get that process right this season, and have the sorter closer to the brownfields opportunities at Talga Talga, Virgin Creek, at Contact Creek. We decided it would be smarter this season to locate the sorter at Nullagine. As Quinton said, we've got the permits that we're required to do that already over in that area. So sorry, what the intent is that we will dig some of the samples we had planned for a 20,000 tonne trial. So we're going to shift 80,000 tonnes to get around 20,000 tonnes of gold bearing material, is the plan at Karatha. This season we'll take some of those samples early and simply truck them the 560 kilometres across to the Nullagine Gold Project. So I hope that answers your question. I think there's another one, just scroll down, Ronan, to Matt Williams. Oops, sorry. On sorting. Second, I understand from Rob's earlier comments that the plan with the mechanical sorter is to deploy it at Beatons Creek this year and then to Purdy's Reward Commonwealth next year. Assuming we get Beatons Creek production to 100,000 per year run rate, I assume that's ounces, and it's generating positive cash flow, why would we transport the sorter from BC to Purdy's Reward Commonwealth? Why not simply purchase another sorter with cash flow for it to be delivered? Okay. We've done testing on Beatons Creek material in the past. There was multiple reasons for that. One was, were we not able to acquire the assets of Millennium, we may have had to build our own processing plant. And had we done that, it would be nice to know how small we could make it to produce for the minimal capital. So basically we were testing the Beatons Creek resource to see how amenable it was to sorting. That became a moot point when we acquired Millennium. We also tested it as a proxy for Virgin Creek and Contact Creek. We see those systems as being similar in nature. We believe they're in the Hardy Formation as well. They're about 120 kilometres north and to the west of Marble Bar. So basically, sorting Beatons Creek back in the day was a proxy to how well they may perform through a sorter as well. So the issue with the sorter at Beatons Creek is that right at the moment, we can upgrade the product, as you saw in our news releases, from around 2 or 3 grams a tonne to up to 7 or 8 grams a tonne. The issue is that the reject is still economic grade. So at the moment, it doesn't make sense to have sorters at Beatons Creek. However, now that we put a sorter there, we will put some more material through Beatons Creek. We did a little bit of testing, I think about maybe 12 to 14 months ago on the Beatons Creek low grade to see if we could upgrade that consistently. The results were not absolutely clear. So we'll certainly be doing more testing on that, because that may increase the amount of material we can send from Beaton's Creek, particularly in the mineralised waste and low grade category. So hopefully that answers those questions.
I can see some that I can take, Rob, but I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, you go, Quinn.
Look, there's one here, a newfound, hold on, it jumps around, it's moving. Hold on, where'd it go? Here it is. Newfound a strategic investment, question mark. It is. I mean, the original premise for taking the investment in Newfound was looking at that opportunity, that exploration opportunity, as perhaps the next Fosterville. So initially, yeah, but it's definitely grown in value dramatically. So now the dollar value of that investment is certainly very large. We definitely are going to benefit from that. It's perhaps a bit, we'll say, gotten away from us in terms of size, but it was initially a strategic investment. The second part of that question is, I'm going to summarize because it's kind of written in bits and pieces here, but it's effectively, why don't we use a sale of the Newfound stock to pay off the debt and so forth? First of all, we do have escrow terms on the Newfound shares. So most of those shares are in escrow. I think something like 85% of them are in escrow presently. But the other issue is that our debt covenants with Sprott prohibit us from selling a large block of equity without that money going straight towards paying down the debt. And in this case, the argument is, why not pay down the debt? Might be that that's a use of it, but we got to wait for that escrow period to end. Look, the other part of this, guys, is, and I'll stick my neck out here, is that Newfound is growing. Okay, they're getting more and more information as they grow more, and we've seen a tremendous growth in that investment. We do not see need to rush into anything. Like Ronan said earlier, we're very careful about how we treat these investments. We're not loose cannon, and we will maximize the value of these investments for our shareholders. Let's see, there was another question here that came in about a minute.
Just while you're looking,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I think it's also important to note, obviously the board and management assess this constantly. The
Correct.
Sprott debt does have a prepayment penalty concept that is live until September of next year. So at this point, economically, that prepayment penalty would not be, or is high enough to preclude us from looking to settle the debt earlier. We
Correct.
obviously keep an eye on that every month.
Yeah. In other words, it would be foolish to trigger a penalty on it. So that doesn't make sense. Look, there's a question here about how do we prioritize our projects or our exploration focus. Look, I work directly with Kaz and her team. That is my main function in the company, along with Kaz. And the team is the one who prioritizes things. They collect historic data on all of the assets, the targets, and known prospects on our ground. But they also do a lot of field work to assess those. And based on that work, that early, we'll call it reconnaissance level work, they then rate and rank the different projects. So the ones that we talked about in the slide deck, the little dots that we had highlighted, are basically the highest priority targets that we plan on working on this year. And of course, most of those, again, are in the Nullagine area. Let's see.
Maybe go down a few, Quinton, down to Brian Kuhn's question at 829. Probably a good segue.
Yeah. All right. I'll scroll down there. I found it. Okay. From share price perspective, we'd say that Novo is in a bit of a leveling stage, and it hopes for a Newfound gold type event happening is not in the near term or short term. Near or short term. Not quite sure what that. Anyway, look, I think the question is, where are we stock price wise? Look, Novo is ramping up into production. So if you look in the traditional sense, like the Lassonde curve, for example, we've made it through the bottom of we'll call it the trough of development stage, and we're on to the mining stage. the growth through exploration is going to be what drives a lot of the value going forward, but also obviously the production, the cash flow that we expect from our operation. So I see a lot of blue sky from here. There's another question about the Chrysos machines. It says, will the 2 Chrysos machines secured by Novo be able to sufficiently address the assay turnaround issues needed for Beaton's Creek grade control, as well as all the exploration programs? That was part of the condition with signing up with Intertek. Effectively, Intertek leveraged our agreement to get the money they needed to buy the Chrysos machines. But in doing so, we've agreed to provide, or how should we put it? We've mutually agreed to treat a large volume of samples, a minimum of 20,000 samples per machine. So that's 40,000 samples per month. That's a wonderful outcome for us because it gives us enough bandwidth to do our grade control assays and our resource growth drilling, which is an important part of the Beaton's Creek project. But it also allows us to bring in that stream of exploration samples into the picture. We have been literally just locked, hamstrung in terms of ability to process samples. The labs around the world are stuffed up, but we have now managed to find a nice clear path to getting assay turnaround for our work. And that's why we've approved that budget for our exploration team here recently. And now they're out in the field doing work, collecting samples, both rock chip samples, but also doing drilling and so forth. So we're delighted with the outcome. This really puts Novo in a much advanced position with respect to many mining companies. Look, it's tough out there in the analytic world right now. All right, help me out, guys. You've been reading.
I think there's one in the chat that I'll answer. It's will Novo buy stranded nugget assets to leverage its IP? If so, what is a realistic timescale for the first deal? So the answer to the first part of that question is yes, absolutely. We're building up a lot of in-house knowledge. Even as late as probably mid to late last year, we employed an in-house specialist metallurgist to help us out with processing and to champion the mechanical sorting efforts, which is pretty rare for a company exploration transitioning to production. So that is our intent, to build a team that knows about mechanical sorting and what it can do. And once we demonstrate success, we fully intend to leverage that IP. Once we understand what the effective radius from a mill can be and how well we can concentrate these deposits. We are aware there are a lot of alluvial / nuggety deposits that are probably not big enough to sustain their own processing facility, that we may be able to put our thumbprint on right around Australia or indeed overseas and bring very high grade concentrates back to the processing plant, or potentially even direct smelt in situ based on our knowledge of how a sorter could work. A realistic timescale for the first deal? Well, it's pie in the sky type stuff. I think we need to demonstrate the success in phase 2 trials, which internally we are all very confident of, given what we've all seen in the lab. We invite a lot of people from head office, everyone that needs to be convinced that sorting can work. We invite along to observe the trials. Most of our exploration people have been involved in these sort of trials, and they will never look at a conglomerate in the field the same way again. They don't see a low-grade conglomerate, they see something that can be upgraded. So it's pretty exciting. But excellent question, and I think we mentioned it earlier in the presentation that we're building IP and we intend to leverage it for the benefit of shareholders. That's exactly what we intend to do. I think there's a few questions here that Ronan's probably best placed to answer.
Yeah, a couple of financial questions. I should start. I see there's a question about the Sprott Resource Lending Group in the chat. So look, we have a very close relationship with them. They are a step away from Sprott himself, but we also continue a very close, certainly through Quinton, relationship with Sprott. So we're lucky enough to have them as our lenders. They certainly like working with us as opposed to against us, and they do get a bit more information than most, but they use that to assist us. So I see no issues with that. And if there's any commercial negotiation that needs to be had, to answer the question that's in the chat, about disposal of any assets. Look, they are lenders and they are economically incentivized, so I'm sure that we'll be able to do that. There are a couple of questions about Beaton's Creek itself and cash flow positivity. What I can say, I'll say that obviously there'll be more details in our financial statements for the quarter ended June 30th. What I can say, though, very happily, is that from an operational level itself, Beaton's Creek was cash flow positive for the month of May. I'm going to turn into Australian dollar figures, and we had about 11.7 million revenue versus about 10.7 million costs. That was from Beaton's Creek itself. Now, to answer another question, one of the reasons that we jumped on the special warrant financing, in May was because while we are still in ramp up, we recognized the need to accelerate our exploration efforts, and we wanted to ensure that the 14,000 square kilometers of tenure we have in the Pilbara was not left unattended. Certainly there are carrying costs that go along with that tenure, but there's also an effort to go along with exploration and ensure that we fast track those projects, especially the ones that are closer to the Golden Eagle Mill, to which Quentin alluded to earlier.
Beaton's Creek foremost. Yes. Okay,
We'll go for another 5 minutes, I think, and see if there are any questions here that we'll answer before we have to sign off.
If Novo decide to buy another sorter, how many months before it will be operational? Should Novo do something to diminish that period? Look, that's from Daniel H. When we bought our first sorter, from memory, it was on about a six to 8 month lead. That is because our sorter is not built like the other sorters. It's a high spec sorter. We believe it's the most powerful one in Australia. The sensitivity on all the scanners is next level, so we expect big things from it. If we wanted to get the normal garden type sorter, there are a lot of machines from both Tomra and Steiner in Australia that would be available at short notice. So I guess the question's alluding to a potential transition into production. Whether we mop up some of the machines around the place at lower than initial capital cost, or whether we go for a new bespoke setup, that's down the track. But in the planning phase for all these things, the design time and the ramp up time would be matched by the lead time for these sorters. So I don't think we're going to face too many issues down the track in that regard.
Okay, that's getting close to about as much time as we have. So I'll just bring it back and wrap up for everyone. There is one last question I think we should address. Is it realistic to expect a much higher exploration budget when Novo becomes cash flow positive? I think the answer is certainly yes, and that's coming from the most conservative, fiscally conservative person in the room here. We are an exploration company turned producer, and we certainly don't want to shy away from our exploration roots. Again, with 14,000 square kilometers of tenure in the Pilbara, plus our JVs in Victoria, there's a lot of ground to explore, and we certainly want to get out there as fast as we can. So with that, we'll wrap up proceedings. There are a couple of questions that we haven't been able to get to, but look, you can always reach out to myself, Rob, Quentin, or Leo, and Leo's contact information is on the screen. And we're more than happy to answer any further questions that you may have, and look for, obviously, our public disclosure in the coming weeks and months. I think with that, we will sign off. Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your time this morning, this evening, or wherever you are in the world. And we look forward to keeping you updated on progress at Beaton's Creek. Thank you.